Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are undertaking what I can only describe as a deep forensic examination of pure distilled trauma.
That's a good way to put it.
We aren't just looking at a stack of documents. We're opening up a single, brutal travel day. We've got the log here, session 23 for a group of adventurers we just call the party.
In this session, it's really a masterclass in how a relentless, oppressive setting like Barovia just strips away alliances, twists motivations, and collapses any sense of moral certainty.
In less than 24 hours.
Oh, absolutely. It's a study in exponential pressure.
Right.
If you really want to understand the nature of dread in this realm, it isn't the grand, sweeping narrative. It's the microscopic choices people make when they're exhausted and desperate.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty surgical. We need to unpack the immediate cascading cost of revenge, identify the subtle but lethal signs of internal treachery from a brand new ally, and understand how the foundations of the party's own history were, well, basically built on fraud.
We're here to find those little nuggets of knowledge hidden in all the chaos.
Right. So for context, let's remind everyone of the party's state. They are physically and mentally they're fleeing Argynvostholt, having just battled revenants, spectral knights, spiders, you name it.
A really nasty place. And they were severely beaten. Then, this morning, right before dawn, they had to fight off an attack by animated scarecrows just outside their own camp, so they haven't even had a moment to breathe.
Beat up, morally gray, running on sheer survival instinct, and critically low on resources. Their goal is the Wizards of Wine Vineyard. It's the only sanctuary they know of in this corner of the land.
But they don't even manage an hour of travel. Not 1 hour down the Svalich road before the environment, as it always does, forces their hand.
It's that unrelenting nature of Barovia, isn't it? You never get to choose your battles.
Never. You only choose how you respond. And so, right as that familiar, miserable gray dawn breaks, they spot a bonfire. Urihorn, the halfling beastmaster, he confirms it pretty quickly.
It's a ritual.
A ritual. Wild men, just like the ones from Yesterhill, and they're holding a prisoner for sacrifice.
And this is where we hit that first crucial element of what we call Barovian logic. They remember that the last time these wild men completed a ritual, they unleashed that devastating animated effigy, Winter Splinter.
A monster that just wrecked the landscape. So they have this terrible choice. They can't just walk away and risk another giant, land-shattering monster being created.
So they have to strike, even as beaten down as they are.
It's compulsory violence. The logical survival-based option is actually the aggressive one. Retreat is genuinely impossible because the threat, if you leave it to fester, it always grows disproportionately large.
So even depleted, even morally exhausted, the party knows they must stop this ritual.
But as we're about to see, even a rescue attempt against some common wild men is fraught with these very specific, tailored dangers that are going to challenge the very nature of their new companion.
Okay, so let's unpack this bloody dawn in deep detail. The party launches a classic ambush, right? Attacking from the cover of trees and thickets.
It is, but the key moment of initiation, the thing that makes it work, comes from Urihorn.
What does he do?
He shows just phenomenal battlefield awareness. Even in these swirling gray mists and the shadows of the woods, he spots a wild man who has been specifically hidden as a sentry.
Ah, so he prevents their own ambush from being ambushed.
Exactly. And his wounding shot, right before the full assault begins, is what elevates the attack from just a desperate charge to a coordinated ambush. It signals that this party, despite, all their moral rot, they still maintain some tactical precision.
But the focus immediately shifts, doesn't it? It goes right to the prisoner, a man named Argynvostholt.
Right. We learn he's a hexblood, a creature of dark fae lineage, and also a Circle of the Moon druid. And he is trussed up, about to be ritually murdered. And the wild men, they were meticulous. They really did their homework.
They understood their enemy.
They absolutely did. The constraints placed on him are the first nugget of really crucial technical lore here. It wasn't just rope. The sources are specific. He was smeared with a mixture of dried wolfsbane, mugwort, and nightshade.
Okay, so why those specific components? Why is that such a lethal combination for someone like Riven?
Well, for a Circle of the Moon druid, wild shape is their whole deal. It's their essence, their primary defense, their weapon.
It's everything.
It is. And wolfsbane, mugwort, and nightshade are these powerful, anti-magical, toxic, and paralyzing agents in this setting. They're specifically designed to inhibit natural transformation magic.
So by smearing him with them, they weren't just tying him up physically.
No, they were chemically, maybe even magically, nullifying his primary combat ability. He was functionally disarmed. His doom seemed, pretty absolute.
But the chaos from the ambush, it provides the smallest window of opportunity.
Just a tiny one. He uses the confusion, the smoke, the spears, the sound of spells to sort of inch along like a worm, throwing himself out of the smoke cloud where those volatile agents might have been concentrated.
And once he's free of that immediate concentration, his druidic nature can take over.
His sheer strength and transformed nature, yeah. He uses the confusion not just to break the bonds, but to completely shift the momentum. He transforms into a chimeric cat.
A chimeric cat. Okay, explain that. Why is that specific detail so key, and how does it relate to him being a hexblood?
Well, a hexblood, by its very nature, is already transformed. They're partially monstrous, part humanoid, often because of a hag's influence. So the chimeric cat suggests Riven's wild shape isn't pristine nature. It's a reflection of his own dark lineage.
So he's shifting into something inherently unnatural.
Exactly. Something stronger, maybe more monstrous than a typical forest creature. And this transformation lets him exert this unnatural strength to break the bindings, rapidly climb a tree for safety, and reposition himself tactically. It's a visual confirmation that everything about him, from his skin color to his animal forms, has been corrupted or amplified by Barovia's atmosphere.
And from the safety of that treetop, the counterattack is, well, it's spectacular.
It really is. On the ground, the wild druid traps Radley, the eldritch knight, and Traxador, the cleric, using Entangle. They are completely immobilized, totally vulnerable to the rushing wild men.
A classic tactical move, eliminate the front line.
Right. But Riven capitalizes on his height advantage and freedom. He emerges from the wild shape, and you have to imagine him just covered in cat fur and hexblood residue, and he casts Moonbeam.
The source material here describes the light as near blinding in the gloom of the Barovian dawn. So this wasn't just raw damage.
No, it was a devastating tactical light. It instantly reduced a trio of wild men to ash. Just poof, gone. It's a display of raw, unrestrained magical power that signals to the party, this is not an ordinary man.
The wild druid, he obviously realizes the threat and counterattacks, casting Thunderwave directly at Riven.
And here's that morbid Barovian detail we love. The spell throws Riven 10 feet higher, yes, but the descriptive collateral damage is a shower of pine needles and the carcasses of several dead squirrels flinging skyward.
Only in Barovia, a major magical battle interspersed with dead squirrels. It's the futility of conflict highlighted by roadkill.
But Riven, miraculously, holds concentration on the Moonbeam.
He does. And that tenacity, that focus, allows Traxador, despite being moments from getting a spear in the chest, to deliver the finishing move.
A guiding bolt. It just consumes the wild druid in radiant energy. The remaining wild men instantly recognize they are completely outmatched and flee, melting back into the morning mists.
The party is safe, but the aftermath is profoundly unsettling.
Unsettling is exactly the right word. Riven does not leap down to hug his rescuers. He maintains a deliberate 5-foot distance, placing his blinding moonbeam spell between himself and the party.
He's assessing them, keeping them at bay.
Exactly, and the physical shock of his appearance confirms the hex blood lineage. Pale green flesh shot through with violet small horns, sharp teeth, matted hair. When he's asked what he is, his answer is the perfect Barovian non-answer.
What does he say?
He claims he's just a man, or was, who has resided in the domain for many years, if not decades.
And this triggers that fascinating exchange about the Barovian lifespan. It's like an exercise in trauma sharing that, ironically, completely fails to build any trust.
It really does. They're all just comparing scars. Traxador reveals he was literally petrified for centuries until the party rescued him. A massive time gap.
Radley admits he was lured by Vistani and lost 2 companions, confirming that external manipulation.
And Urihorn is the relative newcomer, driven by this pure, simple goal. Revenge against Strahd. They are all broken, long-suffering figures.
But Riven remains utterly guarded through all of this. His first active measure as a newly rescued companion is ingratitude.
Not at all. It's suspicion. He casts Detect Magic to scry for spells or spies on his rescuers, checking their motives, their gear, their auras.
He agrees to go with them to Wizards of Wine because, it's the only logical safe haven nearby.
But the final, truly chilling detail surfaces just as they turn to walk away. Riven, with this surgical, secretive precision, takes a single hair from his own head and surreptitiously places it under Radley's cloak.
And that is the moment. That's when the narrative shifts from an external threat to internal espionage. We have this powerful hexblood save from certain death, who immediately plants a scrying or tracking component on the party's eldritch knight.
The implications are huge.
Yeah.
It screams caution, yes, but it fundamentally redefines the alliance before it's even begun. Riven is a survivor who has lived here for decades. His physical and psychological transformations are totally intertwined. He trusts no one, not even those who risk their lives for him.
He isn't a grateful companion.
No, he's an asset collector who views his rescuers as new variables that need constant magical monitoring. He isn't allied with them. He's merely traveling with them, and he's ensuring he knows where they are and potentially what they are doing at all times.
But this raw, unresolved tension is just carried right into the very next confrontation.
Exactly. All that psychological baggage from part one, the exhaustion, the unresolved suspicion over Riven, the lingering dread of the Hexblood's power is what fuels the chaos of part two. The party walks on, this little cluster of tense allies, and soon they smell campfire smoke.
They find a small, concealed camp just off the Svalich road. And there they see him, the unmistakable figure of Izek Strasny, the executioner of Vallaki.
Characterized by that grotesque bestial arm, he's hacking wood with a huge axe. Traxtor and Radley recognize him instantly. He is the man who headed their wizard companion Valinair just 10 days earlier.
And this is where the exhaustion and that desire for some kind of moral simplicity just override all logic.
Traxador snaps. The cleric of light, the one who is supposed to be the moral compass, he just breaks. He abruptly charges, casting a vengeful guiding bolt and striking Isaac with searing radiance.
It's an act of blind, overwhelming, and as we'll see, potentially catastrophic vengeance.
It is, and this is where we need to stop and really perform a deep dive into Traxador's critical logic flaw here. What was his reasoning, and what did he completely fail to recognize?
So his thinking was rooted entirely in outdated political information.
And wishful thinking. He genuinely believed that the former burgomistress had posted a reward for Isaac's capture, and that delivering him would secure a pardon for the whole party. He saw Isaac as the key to clearing their names and finally returning to Vallaki.
But the sources confirm the brutal reality.
The burgomistress Baroness Lydia, she was executed 3 days ago. She is dead. Furthermore, she believed Traxador was dead, executed alongside Valinair, and Radley and Dairman are still very much wanted criminals.
So his revenge isn't just impulsive, it's based on an administrative error.
In a realm where those errors get you killed, his path to vengeance is completely divorced from the political reality on the ground.
So the battle lines draw immediately. Radley throws fire bolts, Urihorn shoots arrows.
But Riven, who is still trying to figure out the party's motives, he intervenes not to harm Isaac, but to immobilize him. He casts Hold Person. He is completely perplexed by this sudden, violent, and frankly self-destructive shift in his rescuers.
Traxador just ignores Riven's tactical move and continues his assault against the helpless Isaac, shouting, "He murdered our friend."
And that is the exact moment the universe answers him with fire.
A shrill scream erupts from the camp.
Leave him alone!
Enter Victor, a portly adolescent boy who is immediately revealed to be a powerful and very, very angry arcane prodigy. He instantly casts Fireball.
And it engulfs the entire party. The devastation is immense, especially because the party is already injured. But let's focus on the collateral damage for a second.
Urihorn's panther.
Urihorn's beloved panther, his loyal companion and ride, is incinerated instantly. The halfling is thrown clear, injured, and companionless. Radley, Traxador, and Riven are all severely burned.
That's the instant brutal cost of Traxador's impulsivity. But the magical duel isn't over. Traxador tries to cast a healing spell to save himself or the others.
And Victor counterspells the healing magic. Now, this detail is crucial for an adolescent to not only command the immense power of a fireball, but to also execute the precise timing and magical understanding required for a counterspell against a high-level cleric. That makes him more than just a talented kid.
He's a genuine, immediate arcane threat. He's capable of strategic denial of healing.
Absolutely. And they quickly realize who he is. Victor Valakovich, the son of the former Baron, which solves the mystery of that wizard's workshop they found in the mansion.
And Dairman, ever the silver-tongued opportunist, he uses this chaos to cast Charm Person on Victor.
A smart move. He neutralizes the boy's hostility toward him specifically, carving out a temporary safe space for himself.
Traxador finally gets his hands on Isaac, grappling him just as the Hold Person spell breaks. Isaac is restrained, but now he can speak. And this is where he delivers the testimony that just rips the rug out from under Traxador's entire vengeance narrative.
This is the massive psychological devastation of the session. Isaac explains his side. The execution of Valanair was not cold-blooded murder. It was a legal execution for the murder of Milivoy, the young gravedigger.
And the sources are clear on the horror of that murder. Isaac claims Valanair leaped 30 feet from the church steeple just to kill the fleeing boy.
And the betrayal runs deeper. After the party was arrested, Isaac claims Valanair confessed to being Strahd's spy. Not only that, he threatened the crowd with Strahd's wrath.
So it wasn't just a murder.
It was a threat, and Isaac states that after the execution and the party's banishment, Valanair's threats came true. Strahd's minions burned the church and killed scores of townsfolk the very next day.
Okay, but let's challenge the Barovian legal interpretation here. I mean, even if Valanair was a spy and a murderer, does Isaac's known barbaric method of execution, the public spectacle, that sadistic arm, still make him a justifiable target for Traxador? Where's the line between civic duty and sadism in this realm?
And that is the essential ambiguity of Barovia. Isaac is undeniably a brute, but his testimony forces the party to confront the possibility that they were mourning a confessed traitor and murderer. His methods are barbaric, but his actions, by the twisted rules of Vallaki, may have been justified.
So Traxador was pursuing vengeance against a man who, by his own account, was just executing a confessed killer whose actions directly led to a catastrophe.
Exactly. Their shared history, their grief over their martyred companion, is instantly revealed to be fraudulent, and the internal damage just accelerates immediately.
Riven, the new Hexblood ally, he rationalizes that Isaac was merely a civil servant performing his duty. He directly contradicts and condemns Traxador's impulsive attack.
And then you get the ideological schism. Urihorn, the newest member, the one driven solely by anti-Strahd revenge, he has this profound aha moment. He recalls a very specific, very grave warning from Rudolf van Richten, the legendary monster hunter.
What was the warning?
Van Richten had warned Urihorn that Dairman and Radley, two of the party's veterans, had expressed a willingness to aid vampires and that Urihorn should consider them Strahd's agents.
Wow. So that's an existential conflict right there. Urihorn's entire purpose is to destroy Strahd, and now he has evidence that two of his allies, people he's traveled with and fought alongside, were harboring vampire sympathies.
Directly connecting them to the very same kind of betrayal Valanair was accused of. The party is just fracturing along ideological lines based on past statements and these freshly confirmed lies.
Dairman tries to taunt Isaac, right?
Yeah.
He brings up his grotesque collection of frilly girls' dolls they found in his old manor room. It's an attempt to dehumanize the executioner and justify the fight.
But Isaac's response is tragic and brilliant. He explains the dolls weren't a sign of depravity, they were reminders of his long-lost sister. Even the brute has a heartbreaking origin story.
Which just complicates the narrative so thoroughly that Traxador's vengeance now feels hollow, mean-spirited, and just.
Pointless.
Yeah. So with the facts laid bare and factions emerging within both groups, a truce is called. The cost is high. Urihorn's panther is a charred corpse. They desperately ask Victor if he can restore the animal.
And Victor admits he can't, but you can see an idea spark in his mind.
And the veterans, who know the scope of Victor's macabre genius, they remember the animated cat skeletons they found in his workshop. They immediately panic and tell him to forget they even mentioned it. They don't want an undead panther companion.
No. That one moment shows the party's fear of Victor's power is now greater than their desire for revenge.
So Isaac hauls the boy away, but the charmed Victor waves to Dairman, imploring him to visit. And the image we're left with is so stark, so dark, and so perfectly Barovian.
Ravens descend immediately to peck at the charred corpse of the incinerated panther. The physical, brutal price of Traxador's blind vengeance is finalized by that scavenged carcass.
So, in the span of, an hour, they've been betrayed by their dead friend, found their moral quest was a fraud, lost a vital companion, confirmed their new ally is a spy, and their newest member is now actively suspicious of the veterans.
They desperately need sanctuary. And they need to figure out what to do with Victor, who is now charmed by Dairman, a confirmed magical prodigy, and the key to the future political landscape of Vallaki. It's time to seek refuge.
The transition from the chaos and fire of that ambush to the supposed tranquility of the Wizards of Wine Vineyard is a sharp contrast, isn't it? But the party is carrying immense emotional baggage with them.
They really are. Though the vineyard itself offers a rare glimmer of hope in this dark land. Since their last visit, the brittle, blighted vines are now vibrant, sprouting leaves and grapes.
And that's a result of the party's earlier actions, restoring one of the lost magical gemstones. It provides this immediate visual comfort.
And they receive an enthusiastic welcome. The Mardukov family, Stefania, Davian, Elvir, and Claudio, are genuinely glad to see them. They're hospitable to Riven, despite his terrifying hexblood appearance, and they offer condolences for the death of Surin Ironwood.
We also find out that Erwin and Danica Mardukov, the proprietors of the Blue Water Inn, are there as well.
Which is significant. They were forced to flee Vallaki after the party's escape because the burgomistress suspected they were sheltering the adventurers.
Erwin and Danica are also key players in the anti-Strahd movement, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Their network of friends that help them monitor Vallaki is, of course, code for the Keepers of the Feather, the network of were-ravens who oppose Strahd. Their presence signifies that the party has found a true safe haven, monitored and protected by a powerful, organized resistance.
Erwin, in particular, expresses amazement that Traxador is even still alive.
Yeah, he last saw him poised to be hanged.
But even in this sanctuary, the distrust is pervasive. Not all the Mardukovs are so welcoming. Dag and Adrian, two other family members, they remain conspicuously and politely aloof.
And this is a crucial detail that illustrates the long memory of Barovian allies. We have to address the root cause of this lingering animosity. It's revealed that Dag and Adrian dislike the adventurers because, during previous travels, Dermon and the late Surin were carrying the decomposing head of Henrik van der Fort, the former coffin maker.
Okay, but it's worse than that.
It's much worse. They were actively carving the flesh from his skull in the back of the Martikov cart.
In their allies' personal transport, they were carving the decomposing flesh off a skull. That is a level of macabre, casual horror that just transcends normal adventuring.
It shows a profound moral insensitivity and a total lack of respect for their benefactors. It confirms that even though the adventurers saved the vineyard twice, their behavior often veers into the morally repugnant.
So Dag and Adrian, they see the party not as pure heroes, but as incredibly effective, deeply unsettling individuals who walk a very fine line between hero and monster.
Which explains why, even in this refuge, residual caution and these internal family grudges persist.
After that initial tension, the party is given time to rest, which they desperately need. They wake for a lavish dinner celebration, a brief moment of normalcy and excess in the darkness.
And during the feast, Urihorn, who is still grieving the loss of his panther, he warns the Mardukov family about Isak and Victor camping nearby.
But the Mardukovs are entirely unconcerned.
Not at all. They say their friends will keep watch. This just reinforces the strength and the reach of the Keepers of the Feather network.
And the discussion then shifts from immediate safety to the political reality of Vallaki. Danica raises the crucial question of succession. Viktor Vlakovich is now the legitimate heir and successor as burgomaster, being the son of the Baron. Should the party assist in reinstating him?
Danica is pragmatic, but she offers a necessary warning about Victor's character. She confirms what the party just witnessed. He is boorish, cruel, and reckless with massive power. The fact that he incinerated a panther without hesitation really drives that point home for her.
She provides another key piece of political context, too, about the incident with Lady Watcher's daughter, Stella. The families tried to arrange a marriage, it failed miserably, and Stella has been mysteriously out of sight for months. What's the implication there?
The implication is deeply ominous. Given Victor's known cruelty and his possession of vast arcane power, Danica strongly hints that Victor may have harmed Stella, perhaps permanently, to get her out of the way, or simply out of spite.
So she's warning them that placing Victor in power would only replace one tyrant, his father, with another, potentially more magically dangerous one.
Right. So the path of political reform reinstating the rightful heir is a dead end. And Danica, having summarized the futility of local politics, delivers the somber conclusion that just cuts through the whole celebration.
She solemnly concludes that Barovia has only one ruler.
And that statement is so heavy, it casts this dark, inescapable pall over the brightly lit chamber. It forces a reflective silence, bringing everything, the feasting, the small victories, the political debate, back to the central, unmovable truth. They are all prisoners of Strahd.
And in that silence, after all the exhaustion, the conflict, and the political dread of the day, one final, earth-shattering detail surfaces.
This is where we synthesize the relentless chaos of the day. The entire session, from the rescue of Riven to the political debate in the Vineyard, was defined by this relentless chipping away at trust and the revelation of deep-seated lies.
So if we connect the dots, there are really three crucial moments of distrust that define this session. And they all lead to this moment of silence in the Vineyard, where every character is questioning their alliance.
Absolutely. First, you have Riven's espionage. He was rescued, yet his first move was to plant a scrying component, the hair under Radley's cloak. The new ally is actively monitoring them, which just confirms the tension that Barovia breeds paranoid self-preservation.
Then second, the shattering revelation about Valinair. He wasn't just a murdered companion, he was a murderer, a confessed spy for Strahd, whose execution was, by Azek's account, justified.
Which means the party's shared grief and their righteous vengeance was built on a fraudulent martyr. Their whole past is compromised.
And third, the internal breakdown of the alliance structure. Urihorn, the only member with a seemingly pure, singular mission kill Strahd, now harbors deep ideological suspicion of the veterans, Radley and Dermont.
And that's based on Van Richten's warning about their vampire sympathies. The ideological purity of the group is now completely poisoned by suspicion.
They've gone from being a battered but cohesive unit to a group of tense allies who are, quite literally, a liability to each other.
Traxeter's misplaced vengeance cost them an irreplaceable animal companion, and Urihorn, the moral zealot, is now watching his veteran companions with cold, analytical suspicion.
And then comes the final punch-to-the-gut detail that surfaces during that quiet, reflective silence, after Danica confirms Barovia has only one ruler. Several party members notice a physical anomaly on the newest, most dedicated enemy of Strahd.
Urihorn, the halfling beastmaster, the one whose singular focus is vengeance against Strahd, does not cast a shadow.
The gravity of that detail, it has to be analyzed through the lens of Barovian lore. In this world, the presence or absence of a shadow or a reflection is often the first indicator that a person has lost their soul, been corrupted, or, most terrifyingly, been claimed by the domain's master.
The question this raises for you, for the listener, is profound. Is Urihorn already affected by Barovia's pervasive corruption? Is he secretly undead, a creature of the mists that merely believes he is a halfling seeking revenge?
And the timing is everything. How long has he lacked a shadow? Did this happen after he encountered the mists? Or did it happen after his encounter with Van Richten, the man who planted the suspicion against Radley and Dermont?
If he's shadowless, his true nature or his true allegiance, willingly or unwillingly, is now fundamentally compromised. This raises a terrifying possibility that Barovia, or maybe Strahd himself, has already subtly touched and corrupted the purest source of anti-Strahd resistance within the party.
It connects back to Danica's grim pronouncement perfectly. Even if you fight the ruler may have already claimed a piece of you.
The greatest irony is that the man most suspicious of Strahd's agents, the one who suspects the veterans, is the one who shows a physical manifestation of Barovia's claim. The deepest, most lethal secret in the party is now harbored by the most ideologically committed member.
So, what a day.
What a day. In one chaotic travel day, the party went from fighting ritualistic druids and rescuing a hexblood spy to engaging in this complex, morally bankrupt battle with an executioner and a teen wizard.
They absorbed the devastating truth about a deceased companion, exposed the moral fragility of their entire alliance structure, found refuge among guarded allies, and simultaneously ignited this deep internal strife based on old secrets and new physical realities.
The sheer volume of high-stakes information they absorbed in a single day is exhausting, just to recap.
It really is. And that is the core takeaway for you, the learner, about survival in this environment. In Barovia, gaining knowledge is far more dangerous than wielding a sword.
Because every new fact, Valinair's betrayal, Victor's identity, Urihorn's shadow, instantly shifts the foundation beneath the party's feet and forces an immediate, often painful reevaluation of who they can trust. And more importantly, who they are.
They survived the immediate shadows of the mists, but now they have to contend with the shadow they can no longer see.
So the question remains for you to mull over. If the newest member, the one dedicated to vengeance against Strahd, is secretly lacking a shadow, who is truly the greatest threat to the party's survival? The enemies outside, or the secrets they keep from each other?
Stay vigilant.
Welcome to the
And we'll
debate.
see you for the
We
next
are diving into a really defining moment for this adventuring party in Barovia. They have just staggered away from two crises back to back. First, that intense rescue of Riven, the Hexblood druid, and then, almost immediately, that explosive confrontation with Izek Strozny and, the young wizard Viktor Valakovich.
A defining moment is one way to put it. I'd almost call it a breaking point.
Right. And that's the core question here, isn't it? As they head to the Wizards of Wine, which is supposed to be this safe haven, the question is this party a cohesive unit with a shared goal? Or has all this trauma just fundamentally fractured them? I'm going to argue today that the evidence points to a kind of functional unity. despite some very, very severe ethical tensions. They keep choosing to work together.
And I'm going to have to come at it from the other side. I think the evidence of a fracture is just overwhelming. The Izek encounter, it didn't just cause a fight. It ripped the cover off these deep ideological fault lines. I'm going to argue that the internal divisions, the warnings about spies, the outright distrust, it all proves this party is structurally unsound. A temporary truce isn't a real alliance.
I get the skepticism, I do, especially with all the bloodshed. But let me offer a different perspective, one that's maybe more rooted in Barovian pragmatism. When you look at what happened, the key fact is that this party is operating under just extreme constant pressure. And yet, they repeatedly managed to achieve their tactical goals together. They rallied against the wild men to get Riven out. They survived Victor's magic without, falling apart. And yes, Traxador made a rash, an impulsive charge against Isaac. Absolutely. It was driven by bloodlust. But the group showed this vital, immediate self-correction. Riven, the new guy, the Hexblood, he just swiftly intervenes with Hold Person, stops the conflict cold. And then the whole group works out a pragmatic truce. They prioritized safety over revenge. And that ability to stop a destructive impulse and negotiate an outcome, that is functional unity.
I think that's a very generous reading of a chaotic retreat. Tactical success, especially when you're all about to die, can create this powerful illusion of unity. It masks the rot underneath. And that confrontation with Isaac, it wasn't just a fight. It was like a truth serum for the whole group. It revealed these deep, maybe even irreconcilable ideological cracks. I mean, the truth came out mid-fight. Isaac was actually justified in executing Valantir.
That is a big claim.
It is, but the evidence is there. Valantir wasn't just some petty criminal. He murdered the gravedigger, confessed to being a spy for Strahd, and then threatened the whole town. A threat that, tragically, came true the very next day, when the church burned. And this knowledge, this confirmation that Strahd has agents everywhere, it forces Urihorn to confront this really grave warning he got from Rudolf van Richten, that Radley and Daramon might be agents themselves. This isn't just a little distrust. This pits Urihorn's entire reason for being there, his revenge mission, directly against his companions.
Okay, let's break that down because that is your strongest point, the warning about Radley and Daramon. You're saying this creates an untenable fault line, but I'm just not convinced the suspicion is enough to actually fracture a party that has already shown a phenomenal tolerance for, frankly, grotesque behavior.
You mean the head?
I mean the head. Think back. Daramon and Sauron were carrying around the coffin maker's decomposing head, carving the flesh off the skull. I mean, it's a truly disturbing image. And their companions, Dag and Adrian, they found it awful, but it only made them cautious. It didn't make them enemies. These people are hardened survivors. So this warning from Van Richten, for now, it's just suspicion. And in Barovia, suspicion is just the air you breathe. They're still bound by what they need right now to survive and get to the Wizards of Wine.
I have to disagree that it's just suspicion. It's suspicion that is suddenly backed up by external confirmation from Isaac's story. The Valantir revelation proves how vulnerable they are to Strahd's network. And for Urihorn, that makes the ideological rift existential. He hears Isaac defend his actions, and suddenly Von Richten's warning, it must be ringing in his ears with this terrifying clarity. The pieces snap together for him. His companions might be actively helping the enemy. That is not something you just shrug off because you saw a severed head once. The fracture is right there in their core alignment. Urihorn wants to destroy Strahd, and they might be helping him. He fundamentally cannot trust them.
But they are moving. They have an objective. They made it to the Wizards of Wine. They're regrouping. Let's look at the functional reality of their newest member, Riven. You paint him as a spy. I argue that he's a powerful asset whose suspicion is completely justified, but whose actions are, at the end of the day, cooperative. He's a tense ally. He took out 3 wild men instantly with Moonbeam. He stopped the Isaac fight from getting everyone killed. I mean, anyone would be cautious after being tied up for a sacrifice and rescued by total strangers. His caution is just. It's normal Barovian behavior. But the key action is he agreed to travel with them. He confirmed a shared goal.
I'm sorry, I just don't buy that he's just a cautious ally. His actions go so far beyond simple self-defense. They are clearly the actions of an investigator who is protecting himself from the party. We have to focus on the most critical piece of evidence here. Riven secretly plants a hair from his own head under Radley's cloak.
It is a strange detail.
It's more than strange. It's a calculated surveillance tactic. You do that to track a potential threat. If you are truly an ally, you do not use forensic espionage on your group. And what's more, his moonbeam spell, it wasn't just an attack. When they regrouped, he used it as a visual and tangible barrier between himself and them. He is acting on a hidden agenda. He is using them for a ride, and he is spying on them while he does it.
And I would argue that self-interest is the one thing that is holding this group together. They're not unified by friendship or loyalty. They're unified by sheer necessity. The fact that Riven is spying on them, it confirms he sees them as dangerous, yes, but also as temporarily useful. And that utility is the functional cohesion I'm talking about. It's a temporary alliance of desperate people whose needs happen to align for now.
But an alliance built on utility is inherently unstable. It can shift in a heartbeat. Let's look at the rationality of their decisions, specifically the one that started the Izek fight. You say they self-corrected, but they only did so after a huge, avoidable cost. The attack was initiated by Traxador's bloodlust, a completely irrational impulse, and it caused horrific casualties. Urihorn's panther was incinerated by Victor's fireball. The whole party was badly burned. This just shows a group that lacks reliable leadership and is prone to these destructive emotional whims.
Well, but in fact, Riven himself yelled at Traxador, asking why they were even attacking Isaac. That's a clear division of goals right there in the middle of a fight. It shows that one person's vendetta can derail the entire group. That's a recipe for collapse. I see that point, though I would frame it very differently. Yes, the initial impulse was a disaster, but the group's capacity for rapid correction, for negotiation, that shows a kind of stabilizing, self-regulating mechanism. Traxador made a mistake, and the team immediately moved to counteract it. Riven neutralized Isaac, Daramon neutralized Victor with Charm Person, a spell that literally suppresses hostility. They didn't start fighting among themselves over Traxador's mistake. They paused, they took in the new information from Isaac, and they chose the pragmatic path. A truly fractured group would have either kept fighting or scattered. They chose survival through negotiation.
I have to push back hard on that word negotiation. The truce was bought with emotional manipulation. Daramon charmed Victor. That is not collaboration. That is not consensus. It is a temporary suppression of conflict through magical deceit. The underlying moral fracture about Isaac's actions is still there. They leave and the text explicitly says the boy is still waving goodbye and sorcelled. It shows Daramon's magic is actively suppressing Victor's true feelings. Unity that's built on deceit is brittle. It proves they can't even trust each other to make rational decisions.
Manipulative or not, the outcome was functional. They survived, they got safe passage, they secured a respite, and this functional nature is validated by outsiders. When they get to the Wizards of Wine, the Mardukov family, who are, these crucial allies, the Keepers of the Feather, they embrace Traxador, Radley, and Daramon as heroes. They are completely hospitable to Urihorn and Riven. And most importantly, the Mardukovs, key figures in the resistance, immediately ask for their advice on who should run Vallaki.
And what does that tell us? It tells us the Mardukovs are desperate. Reliance doesn't equal faith. External observation confirms this party is erratic. Their own allies are guarded. Dag and Adrian, the people they rescued, remain politely aloof because of the whole head-carving incident. Even the Mardukovs have their own internal friction, so their allies see what we see, an unstable, unpredictable group.
I'll concede Dag and Adrian are not fans, but the Mardukovs prepared a celebration. They shared vital intelligence. This reliance, this acceptance of them as the strongest functional unit currently opposing Strahd, is the only metric that really matters in Barovia. If the resistance sees them as cohesive enough to handle key decisions, then functionally, they are a unit. The shared need to get to that winery, to rest, and to gather intel bound them together, and it worked.
That glue is exhaustion and fear, not principle.
And when those principles eventually clash, fear won't be enough to hold them together. The revealed conflicts, Urihorn's mission versus potential spies, Riven's active espionage on the party, these aren't just bumps in the road. They are existential threats to the group's integrity. They are a fractured collection of individuals traveling side by side toward an inevitable confrontation with each other. The whole thing is set to explode the moment Urihorn decides he has to act on Van Richten's warning.
We have established, though, that despite all this tension and suspicion, the party has repeatedly chosen collaboration over destruction. They reach safe havens, they make pragmatic truces, they have a shared, immediate interest in survival. And that shared interest constitutes enough cohesion for now. They function. It's a toxic alliance, maybe, but it's an effective one.
Functionality requires some stable ideological base, or at the very least mutual trust. This group has neither. The ideological schisms, the spying, the deceitful magic, it all points to a profound instability. They are fundamentally fractured. And maybe the most unsettling detail in all of this, the one that highlights the uncertainty of the group's true nature, is that little observation. That one member, Urihorn, does not cast a shadow. The true nature of this alliance, and maybe even the true loyalty of its members, remains dangerously fractured. The end of this alliance is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Indeed. The material certainly leaves us with profound questions about the ultimate loyalty of this fragile arrangement. Thank you for this. It was a rigorous discussion.
My pleasure.
Welcome back
There
to
is
the
certainly a lot
critique.
more to explore.
Hello.
This critique analyzes detailed session notes on the party's journey from Argynvostholt, a rescue, and a pretty chaotic confrontation, which all ends with dinner at the Wizards of Wine.
A very eventful session.
It is. Okay, so let's dive right in with that confrontation. Traxidor's sudden and extreme bloodlust against Izek Strozny is a key event, but the notes could really benefit from deepening the emotional justification for it.
Yeah, that action, Traxidor charging across an open field, casting Guiding Bolt, just, right away. It's dramatic gold.
It is.
But right now, it feels structurally a little risky, both in-game and for the narrative. We know Traxidor is, well, he's normally so measured.
Exactly. The weakness we see here is just how abrupt that transition is. The charge feels physically and emotionally risky, especially because the party is wanted in Vallaki.
They're fugitives.
Right. And the prompt is revenge for Valinir's execution. But later in the notes, we find out Isaac's actions were justified. Valinir confessed to murder and being a spy for Strahd.
And that's the core narrative problem, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That retrospective justification makes Traxidor's initial fury seem wildly ill-informed. It really risks confusing the reader.
It does.
It flips him from this figure of righteous vengeance to someone who just started a suicidal fight over, well, half the story. We need to preserve his integrity but still show that desperation.
Yes, absolutely. We have to ground that initial bloodlust in something deeper than just a political mistake.
Right.
So the suggestion for improvement is to really focus the documentation on Traxidor's internal psychological state before the attack. Frame his rush as desperate, as something deeply personal.
Or maybe even influenced by the trauma of his own execution, his petrification.
Yes, exactly that. Make it an emotional failure, not just a factual one.
And that way, the revelations from Isaac that Valen Warren was a killer and a spy, they hit so much harder. It becomes this terrible moment of realization for Traxidor. A moment of growth and guilt, rather than just a plot point that makes him look
Foolish.
yeah.
Okay, so to give some concrete examples for how to do this, you could integrate a brief moment of internal reflection. Show Traxidor actively dismissing the logic of his companions, like Radley or Dermon.
Oh, I like that. So he charges before they can even agree on what to do?
Right. It demonstrates a complete loss of control. It's driven by grief and rage, and it shows he knew it was a bad tactical choice, but just couldn't stop himself.
Or you could focus on a sensory trigger.
Go on.
Well, maybe Traxidor isn't reacting to the abstract idea of justice, he's reacting to the sight of Isaac himself.
Okay.
You could highlight Isaac's grotesque, bestial arm, the very weapon used against Valinir, as this visceral reminder that just completely overrides his rational mind.
Oh, that grounds the response in something traumatic and illogical. I really like that. That sensory detail driving the breakdown.
Exactly.
And to complete that picture, the notes should be crystal clear about how this fits into the wider politics. Traxador is desperate to clear their names. The notes mention the burgomistress offered a reward for Isaac's capture, and he thinks this will get them a pardon.
Right, and that reward is the flimsy rational excuse he gives himself.
Yes.
We just need to be sure the documentation clearly separates that, that political hope from the core emotional drive. The drive has to be primal revenge. The reward is just the justification he latches onto.
That clarifies the sequence perfectly. We're moving the conflict from Traxador made a bad decision to Traxador sacrificed logic to personal trauma.
Which is so much richer.
It really is.
And that charge, that act of reckless fury, it launches us right into that massive, chaotic fight with Isaac and Victor.
It does.
Which is where our next major structural challenge comes up.
Right. I can see what you're going for. The fight is intense. Victor is revealed as this far more dangerous arcane threat, and he immediately incinerates Urihorn's panther with a fireball.
Which is brutal. A massive loss, emotionally for Urihorn and mechanically for the party.
It's absolutely brutal, and that trauma needs to land. But this high-stakes physical action is a distraction from some even higher-stakes social lore. The critical narrative lore about Valinor's confession and Van Richten's warning about Daramon and Rodley, it's all delivered during peak chaos. And that just kills its impact.
The weakness here is cognitive overload. It's just too much.
Yes. The notes consolidate this immense amount of destabilizing info all at once.
You have Isaac's defense of the execution, you have the reveal of Victor as this powerful magic user and potential heir.
And on top of all that, Urihorn is flashing back to Van Richten's warning that his own companions are Strahd's agents.
That is three major world-shaking reveals.
Mm-hmm.
And they're dropped while the party is physically on the ropes. They're burning from a fireball, Urihorn is mourning his companion, Victor is throwing around counterspells.
It's just too much. The sheer volume of immediate threat means the reader or the players, they're just going to overlook the significance of these massive social revelations.
It's a total misalignment of stakes. When you're worried about survival, you're focused on initiative, on damage rolls, on positioning.
You might register, oh, Isaac said something about a confession, but you won't absorb the full, devastating weight of that betrayal.
Or the deep paranoia that Van Richten's warning should introduce.
Exactly. If the information is delivered as background noise to a fight, it loses its power to drive what comes next.
So the suggestion for improvement here is to restructure the scene. Let the physical action resolve, or at least stabilize, before you drop the heaviest information.
Let the dust settle a bit.
Yes. Emphasize the internal friction and the emerging factions after a truce is called.
The revelations about Valinor and who Strahd's agents are, those should be driving the next conflict, the social and political one, the suspicion within the group, not just details shouted over the clash of swords.
Think of it this way. The fight ends, a truce is called. Everyone's wounded, breathing hard, just looking at each other.
Right.
That is the silence that betrayal needs to fill.
I see.
For some concrete examples, instead of Isaac yelling the full confession while he's, paralyzed by a hold person spell.
Or just fighting for his life.
Exactly. Delay the full story until he's released, and the tension has shifted from combat to negotiation.
That gives the confession the weight of a powerful negotiation chip.
Right. Not a desperate last word. And it provides a much cleaner space for the audience to absorb the scale of Valandir's betrayal.
And what that means for Traxador's charge.
And before that truce, the note should explicitly capture the moment of recognition about Victor's power.
Link the fireball back to his wizard workshop.
Yes. Make it clear this isn't some random spellcaster. It's the same unstable, vengeful character they already met. That connection is essential for the reader to get the political stakes.
And we absolutely have to foreground Urihorn's dilemma. So the truce begins. He's just watched his panther get incinerated.
By the heir to the burgomaster, no less.
And he's just remembered a warning that his companions might be secretly working for the monster he wants to destroy.
That internal friction, Urihorn grappling with the idea that his allies might be agents of Strahd, that should become the central conflict of the truce negotiation itself.
Oh, that's good.
It elevates the stakes internally, it sets up the entire rest of the adventure, where every interaction between them is now filtered through this deep suspicion.
That's a brilliant way to handle it. You take the focus off the physical scars and put it squarely on the psychological wounds and the shifting loyalties.
Absolutely. And once they stabilize these high-tension factional conflicts, they move on to the Wizards of Wine.
Which is Homer, but still politically charged. And this brings us to the end of the session. The dinner at the Wizards of Wine is crucial. We get the Martikov family history, the tension between Erwin and Davian, the discussions about Victor. It sets a really complex political stage. But the session ends with a dramatic reveal, and right now it feels muted.
I agree completely. The final revelation, the one about Urihorn's lack of a shadow, is presented way too abruptly. There's no setup, and it just minimizes the emotional punch of what should be a huge cliffhanger.
It is one of the most astonishing twists in the notes.
It's incredible.
Urihorn, the halfling sworn to get revenge on Strahd, is revealed to be shadowless. It immediately calls his entire identity into question.
And yet, the weakness is that the twist comes after this long social scene about family history and mayoral politics.
Right.
The astonishing fact that he does not cast a shadow is delivered as the final sentence, almost buried in a paragraph about dinner. It feels anticlimactic, like an afterthought.
It should be a bombshell, not a footnote.
Exactly.
I can see how that happens, though. After absorbing all that political info, the reader's guard is down. They're winding down.
So the suggestion is to actively introduce subtle hints or structural elements earlier in the Wizards of Wine scene.
To build tension around Urihorn specifically?
Yeah, draw focus to him before the final reveal. We need to frame it so that it immediately challenges the reader's entire understanding of who he is. We need to plant the seeds of strangeness.
Okay, so let's make this actionable. Earlier in the scene, you could note that Urihorn remains unsettled or aloof compared to the others. He's not joining in the revelry.
Right. Or maybe the children, Brom and Bray, Martin and Viggo, they instinctively avoid him, or they look at him strangely. It contrasts his presence with the warmth the Martikovs are offering everyone else.
I love using the children as a barometer for something unnatural. Alternatively, when the Martikovs show their grudging hospitality to the off-putting Hex-blood Riven.
You could contrast that.
Yes. Contrast that acceptance with a lack of attention toward Urihorn. Or maybe note that Dag and Adrian's dislike for the party seems to focus particularly on him.
Those small, unsettling visual checks build a subtle tension. The reader starts asking, subconsciously, what is off about that guy?
Okay, so now let's make sure the actual climax hits with maximum impact. The notes mention that powerful final line from Danica about Barovia having only one ruler.
Yes, that's the perfect setup. But right now, that political statement and the shadow reveal are disconnected.
So we connect them?
We consolidate. Move the phrase, these words cast a dark pall over the brightly lit chamber, which should follow Danica's statement, and put it immediately before the shadow revelation.
Ah, so you create this moment of forced, dramatic silence.
And heightened contrast.
By establishing that dark pall, you're setting the stage. The drama escalates from the political fate of Barovia to the existential mystery of a key character.
The sudden silence, followed by the observation that Urihorn is shadowless, turns the reveal into a direct, shocking consequence of the room's sudden tension.
Exactly. It forces the audience to immediately question his fundamental nature and, critically, his goal to destroy the very vampire lord who controls the shadows of Barovia.
Now that's how you end a session, with an explosion that guarantees the reader comes back for more.
This is a powerful session. So much potential. Okay, to recap the actionable feedback for refining these notes. First, focus on clarifying Traxidor's bloodlust by prioritizing his emotional reasoning and trauma over his faulty political rationale.
Make his charge a crisis of character, not just a logical error.
Second, separate the delivery of high-stakes lore's Valinair's betrayal and Van Richten's warning from the active combat.
Right. Let the truce provide the necessary space for that social conflict and suspicion to really take center stage.
And finally, structurally maximize the impact of Urihorn's shadowless state.
Build subtle tension throughout the Wizards of Wine scene with small visual cues, and then use Danica's final statement to heighten the drama right before that critical twist.
The material is already so strong. The character conflicts, especially the tension between Urihorn and his suspected Strahd's agents, Radley and Dorman, it's great stuff.
And the action sequences are vivid.
They are. The moonbeam on the wild men is fantastic. So just keep focusing on grounding those internal motivations and maximizing those dramatic structures as you refine this.
We look forward to seeing the refined version. Submit your work
This is the
back in
brief
again
on
for
session
follow-up
23.
critique soon.
So after a really chaotic retreat from the Argynvostholt mansion, the adventurers are, well, they're exhausted. And now they're dealing with fanatical enemies, shocking betrayals, and, the deadly politics of Barovia. First up, the party stumbles upon this ritual where wild druids are about to sacrifice their prisoner, a hexblood named Argynvostholt. When the party attacks, Riven cleverly escapes, transforms into this chimeric cat, and then just unleashes a blinding magic that instantly turns several enemies to ash. The rest of them, they just fled. Second, right after that, they run into Exhaustion, the executioner who killed their wizard companion, and Viktor Velikovich. Viktor immediately hits them with a devastating fireball, completely incinerating the halfling Urihorn's beloved panther. But then, during a tense truce, Isaac drops a bombshell. Their slain wizard, Valinir, wasn't a victim. He had confessed to being a murderer and a spy for Strahd, which pretty much confirms some dark warnings about other companions in the group. And finally, they get to safety at the Wizards of Wine Vineyard, only to learn that Viktor is now the legitimate heir to be burgomaster despite his cruel reputation. But the session ends with this absolutely bizarre realization. Several party members notice that Urihorn, their halfling friend, doesn't cast a shadow. So, after barely escaping all these brutal battles, the adventurers' greatest threats now seem to be the dangerous secrets hiding within their own ranks.